What exactly is an admissions consultant? It's a question I hear all the time. So today, I'm going to explain to you my process and how I help people getting into the top MBA and master's programs all over the world. My name is Eric Lucrezia, founder of Candidate Coach and admissions consultant based here in Paris, France, although I'm originally from New York, and I've been working in education and coaching for over 20 years. Today, I'm going to explain how my process works when I have a client to help them go from just looking at MBA and master's programs to helping them get into the most targeted schools. Before I get into my process, I want to explain a little bit what the schools are looking for. So let's start right from the top. Pretty much any business school out there, they're of course going to need a copy of your CV, updated and MBA ready. Might not look very much like the way you have it today, depending on what career field you're into right now. Of course, in complement to your CV or resume, you're going to want to have your LinkedIn profile updated and be active on it throughout the process. After your resume or CV, let's talk about essays. Most schools require you to complete at least one or even a few written essays, and in some cases, video essays that go in with the application. Then there are the tests. Most famously, there's the GMAT, but pretty much every school out there also accepts the GRE, and some schools, more and more, are accepting the executive assessment. Besides this is, of course, the letter of recommendations, one usually or two. If you're a non-native English speaker, you'll also be required to complete a TOEFL or IELTS to demonstrate your level of English proficiency. However, if you've worked or studied in an English-speaking context for the 3 or 4 years that you've been studying or working there, that is often waived. Many schools will ask you to upload a current photo as well as your passport, along with the application fee, which can range between $100 to $150, even $200. And then there's the application itself, where schools will ask you to complete information about your employment history, some of your activities, how you plan to finance the MBA program, as well as some of the alumni or staff that you've been in touch with throughout the research process. So how long does all this take? Well, first of all, there's the test, which most people underestimate how long and how difficult the GMAT or GRE are. For the average native English speaker, we're talking about 2 or 3 months of preparation. That means like solid, rigorous preparation, assuming that you're also working at the same time. If you're not a native English speaker, that might take 3 or 4 months or even up to 5 or 6 months. It really depends. And you really want to plan on taking it probably at least twice. But what I find that people really underestimate the most is the research process, something I call researching and soul searching. This is the process of figuring out who you are, what you're good at, what you want to do, what's going to make you money, in what markets of the world make sense for you to do this career, and then what schools out there are the triangulation between those things, right? What schools are the right fit for you based on your career goals, but also more than that, your values, what kind of cohort you want to belong to in terms of class size and percentage international, female, and various other criteria that will influence the kind of experience you're going to have. And then there's talking to people. You know, most of the MBA programs out there, they're delivering the same nuts and bolts. You're going to take classes in finance, economics, organizational behavior, marketing, management, and so forth. But what it comes down to is how that program is delivered. That plays into the culture of the school, their teaching methodology, and so forth. But also, what is the culture of that school? One of the best ways to get to know the culture is to visit campus. You can't do that because it's far, and understandably, not everyone can make it, but attending online events, and there'll be multiple online events, coffee chats, alumni events that are either happening in your local city or online that is definitely expected that you participate in. Schools are definitely keeping track of your engagement as a sign of how serious, motivated, and mature you are in going through this process. But besides that, you want to speak to current students and alumni, and all of this takes time. And schools actually will ask you what kind of engagement you've had with alumni and current students. They want to know that you've done the research. They want to know that you understand the program and the school and its values. So all of this takes a lot of time, just reaching out to them, waiting to hear back from them, and having those conversations. And all this adds up in terms of time. So if you're thinking, I got a couple of months, I can make this happen. Could be, but it's going to be tight. You got to be prepared to put everything else aside and work on this. So long story short, it does take time. So about my process, the first thing you're going to need is a roadmap, something that shows you from A to Z all the steps you need to do, in what priority, and about how much time each of those things is going to take. This is one of the first things that I like to provide for my clients so they can really have a full picture of what they need to do and when. Besides that, one of the very first things I like to do is what I call a storytelling interview. These interviews are about 25 or so questions that I ask to all my clients, not just questions about work, but things about family and their personal life, to find out what makes you tick. Of course, as I'm working with somebody for the first time, I want to get to know them, But the real purpose of the storytelling interview is to uncover some of those hidden gems, those experiences you've had, those aspects of your personality, perhaps family history, that have shaped who you are today, that make you unique. And honestly, these are some of the things that schools are looking for to understand who you are, and they'll be what set you apart as unique and going to contribute something special to that cohort. And honestly, what I find is that most people really undervalue some of these things. They think that they don't matter, but actually this is mostly what schools are looking for. Following the storytelling interview, I'll provide a storytelling report, which is me mirroring back to you everything you've just told me. And I'll be highlighting some of the things that I find to be the most interesting that you want to include perhaps in your essays or when you're doing your interview later on. You can see the storytelling report as a toolbox that is all about you, full of things that you can use to tell a fantastic story, which is what is going to showcase you as an amazing candidate to be shortlisted for an interview for this program. Right after the storytelling interview, we're going to pivot quickly to the CV and LinkedIn. These are two tools that you want to have in place throughout the whole process. Next, at this point, if we haven't already narrowed down your short list of schools that you're going to be applying to, we go deeper into the process of, again, what I call researching and soul searching. Most of my clients come to me already with a list of schools they have in mind, their dream schools. But very often I find there's loads of schools out there that are fantastic, and perhaps now that I know their personalities and their goals and so forth, that could be an even better fit for them. So I encourage them to look at those schools, and we'll eventually come down to that final short list and move over to the applications. Okay, so we'll go through the applications together. We'll be looking at those essay questions, and I'll give some structure in terms of how they might want to approach the essays, pointing out some of the aspects in their storytelling report, and then it's go time. It's time for you to work on your essays, and there'll be a sort of back and forth. I like to use Google Docs. I find it a great way to track changes, and I can give suggestions and point out some ideas. And after many iterations of your essay, they're done. In parallel to this, we need to talk about references, who you're choosing as a reference, and I'll give some coaching about that process. We'll be sure to have all your right documents, including transcripts, diploma, and so forth that need to be included in your application. And then the final step is generally going through each piece of your application to make sure the app is correct, it's perfect, it's polished, and you're submitting as good of an application as possible. So once your application is officially submitted, we have to wait. During that time, it can be kind of stressful, but we're going to move right over to interview preparation. What I like to do is do some pre-interview coaching. We'll do our first simulation, which I like to film. It's totally awkward, but at the end of the day, you get to see yourself and see what you're doing that you may not even realize that could be taking away from the impact that you could be having in your actual interview. Assuming you'll be shortlisted for an interview, we'll have that interview polished, prepped, so you're feeling confident and calm and ready to go. And when we get to the point that you've been admitted to multiple schools, then sitting down with you and going through the advantages of each, possibly looking at scholarship opportunities. There may be additional essays for scholarships, and helping you select which is the final best choice for you. That's pretty much it. What questions do you have? You can drop any questions you have right in the comments, or go to my website, www.candidate.coach. You can find everything you want to know about me and all the different services I provide, as well as my email address. I look forward to hearing from you. Bye-bye.